If you haven't found your voice, I know you will. You don't need to let the rain clouds underneath your skin. Love sings louder than the darkness. Let the light shine in. I know you will.
Hello and welcome to the Goldberry Artisans podcast. My name is Emily. I'm coming to you from the state of Maine. It has officially become too cold to record outside, so here we are. This is a podcast where I talk mostly about knitting, every once in a while throw in another craft in there. Today I have some knitting, a lot of knitting, a couple of books that I have been reading lately, a game, and a couple of other things thrown in there that I would like to talk about. Fall has officially hit here in Maine. Yes, today is, well, I was talking to my brother last night. We were saying that for a few months out of the year, 46 degrees is like really cold, time to put on a coat. But once, like, it's November now, and today is supposed to get up to 46 degrees. And we're all like, heat wave, I can just put a sweatshirt on to go outside. Like, it'll be so warm today. That's the point of the fall, where we are here in Maine. So, and I promised my shelf never looks this clean. But this is where the light was coming in through my window today the best. So all of the stuff that normally sits here, I can see it. It's a mess. And it reminds me that I should probably clean out all my craft stuff. Anyway, here we are. Thank you for joining me. Wherever you're coming from, whoever you are most welcome here. And I'm so glad that you decided to stop by and watch my podcast, whether you are a new viewer or a returning viewer. Thank you for watching. I appreciate it. So let's just jump right in with some knitting. I think the only project, oh no, we'll start with some finished objects, because that's stuff that you've seen before. I have 2 pairs of finished socks. The first pair is just some vanilla socks. I'm calling them my Éowyn socks from The Lord of the Rings. Because Éowyn is a character in the books. Because this yarn is from Valkyrie Fibers. It is her Éowyn colorway. I always think my feet are smaller than they are. So I've had a few pairs of socks that turned out to be a little bit too small. Including these ones. The heel is like underneath my heel. Like it's just, like the foot part is just a bit too short. I haven't decided yet if I'm going to keep these or if I will pass them on to one of my younger sisters, that they will fit better. I love them and I love the yarn. And I actually have, I think I have about 43 grams left of this yarn, so I definitely have enough to do a shorty pair of socks for myself. So for these I did, I knit them, I cast on ribbing, I just knit a stockinette tube, did the heel, and then I went back in and cut in for the afterthought heel. So these have been mostly done for a while. It was just this week that I finally went back in and added the afterthought heel for the second one. Which is why I don't do a lot of afterthought heels. I'm fine with cutting the knitting open, but it's easier to procrastinate on it if I have to go back in and do it than if I just knit the heel like as part of knitting the sock. But for this, for a self-striping yarn like this, I wanted to make sure that the stripes matched, that it didn't get messed up with the heel. I did not line up the yarn for the heel, so the heels are different. But the striping on the rest of the socks, I am very, very happy with how it matched up. So these, are my Aowen socks. Note to self, 60 stitches on size 1 needles is too small. My other pair of finished socks, I've been wearing them, so a second. Ooh, they're a little bit, there we go, a little bit molded to my feet. These, I've dubbed these my Green Gables socks because of the yarn. But these are the Odeline socks by Melanie of the Braid and Tinker podcast. It's her first pattern, and I absolutely love them. The yarn is from Little Skein in the Big Wool, her smooth sock base in the Green Gables colorway. It was like an Anne of Green Gables Club colorway. And these socks came out a bit small. These socks, it's like, I was about to say it's like they were made for my feet. They were. But they fit perfectly. And every time I knit pattern socks, I remember how much I like wearing pattern socks. I definitely wear my vanilla socks a lot. But pattern socks, they just have such a nice structure and they stay up on my leg better. And it's easier to make sure that the foot is long enough and that they're both the same size because you can just do the same number of repeats of the stitch pattern on the front. I love these. So I was a test knitter for this pattern. I very highly recommend it. It looks more complicated than it is. So there's this kind of like a cable pattern on the front. But you basically are only doing the cable pattern. I don't remember. I knew 3 weeks ago how many rounds in between. But there's several rounds in between when you do the cable crosses, and they are super simple. Like, it took me, like, after I did the first round, I didn't have to look at the pattern again, like, for the stitch pattern, because I knew what it was supposed to look like. Really easy to memorize. So, the stitch pattern is gorgeous, but it doesn't take as much work as it looks. So I am so pumped about these socks, and I love them. My mom really liked them too, but I'm keeping this pair. My one other finished object I cast on and cast off within a week, which is amazing. I don't really do that a whole lot anymore. So this is a cowl. The pattern is Smooth Edge by Vera Valimaki. And it was a different construction than I have ever seen before. So you use short rows to create this shape. Oh, and the yarn is from On the Round. It's her Everyday Worsted base in the Harvest colorway, which is absolutely perfect for fall. I'll try it on and show you why it's shaped like this. So there's two sections of a herringbone stitch and that with garter stitch in between, which is where the short rows happen. So basically you can put the smaller edge on the back of your neck. So theoretically you could wear it in one loop like this. I don't normally wear cowls like that. I just find they kind of get in the way. But then you can also double it up and have a nice, warm, cozy cowl. Hold on, let me put my chair up a little bit so you can see. There we go. So this is really nice and warm. At first, I thought it was going to be a bit too tight on the neck, but I blocked it and it lengthened out a little bit. So you can see, because of the short rows, there's more bulk in the front than in the back. It's not as noticeable when it's doubled up. But I really like that shape, and I want to do that for other cowls too, that are a bit, because it makes sure that you can have the bulk in the front without it being too big in the back. Like if you have your hair down, or you've got your coat collar, or whatever, there's just less fabric in the back. I absolutely love this cowl. It's supposed to be for my mom for Christmas. We will see. Because I love it. I actually cast this on and worked on it during the first knit night that I've ever attended. It's a craft night in general, not specifically a knit night. There's just a lot of people knitting. I don't know if you've heard of Taproot magazine. It is an ad-free independent magazine that talks about my mom always says, as my mom would term it, earthy, crunchy things, like homesteading and farming and crafting and herbal remedies and recipes. It's just a fabulous magazine. Well, the editor of the magazine and a lot of people who work on it live in Maine. And they had been partnering with another business, with a farm that had a farm store in Portland, and so they had a market inside that farm store. They recently reopened, and they have their own shop, their own space now in Portland, Maine, to be specific, not Portland, Oregon. And I had thought about going to the craft nights, but it never worked out. For a while I had Wednesday night classes for school or something else going on, because they meet twice a month, the first and third Wednesdays. But I finally decided, they opened a new space, finally decided I was going to go. But I needed a project to work on. Everything else I had wasn't really in a good spot to work on. So I brought this. I got there a little bit early, which meant I had enough time to cast on before a lot of people arrived. And it was, like, the best. It was so much fun to connect with other crafters and knitters in the area, and we could talk about the patterns we were using and what yarns we had, and actually one of the women I was sitting next to was using on the round yarn in her project, which was really fun. So I'm really excited to go again. It was just so delightful to be in a group of knitters like that, because I've been looking around and trying to find a knitting group or a crafting group that I could make it to. A lot of things happen during the day, which doesn't work for me. I work standard office hours, so something that happens in the middle of a Thursday afternoon or a Tuesday morning, I can't make it. And that's what a lot of people who were there that I was chatting with were saying, was that they liked that it was in the evening on a weekday, so they were able to make it. So it was just delightful all around. So if you were ever in Maine, make sure you're here on a first or third Wednesday. I don't know if they do it over the summer or if they just didn't this summer because they were moving to a new location. But yes, you come visit me and visit Taproot. Or try to find a knitting or crafting group in your area if you can, because it's just so fun to connect with other people who also love your craft. Like, my family are supportive of my knitting, but they don't understand why I'm so excited about a certain yarn or a certain pattern or something. So it's just nice to be able to connect with other people. And I had been kind of nervous about going by myself, because I don't really have anybody like a knitting friend that I could be like, oh hey, you want to go to this with me? Sometimes I drag my sister along to things, my older sister. Like when I went to Rhinebeck last year, she and I went together, but it's not exactly her thing. She just likes to travel, so she came with me. So yeah, if you're able to find a group, I would definitely encourage you. It did kind of it did highlight one of the problems in the crafting and knitting community that has been being brought to the forefront of a lot of knitters and fiber artists' brains this year, is the need for diversity and inclusion in our craft. I would say almost everyone who was there was white, like me. And I think that's in large part just due to the demographics of Maine in general. It's Maine. It is like, we have high concentrations of Caucasians in Maine. There have been, in this past several years, a lot of immigrants, refugees and asylum seekers who have been coming to Maine. There are a lot of them who have settled in Portland. So it's not that there are no people of color in Maine, because that's false. But it's kind of made me think of how can I connect with them and invite them and encourage them to come and try to make things that I do welcoming and be a welcoming person for people who are different than I am. And I think it's also, if I have just run away from a war-torn country and don't have a lot of extra money, I'm not going to be spending my money on yarn and have the time to sit down for 2 hours at a craft night. So I think there is that element of it as well. But I do think it's important to continue the discussion of how can we create more diverse spaces that are welcoming of people of color. Even in a place like Maine, where it's not really known for being a diverse state. But it was a delightful craft night, and I'm pumped to go again. Yeah, the shawl that I'm wearing is my Waiting for Rain shawl by Sylvia McFadden, who is Soft Sweater. That's her design name. I knit this out of 2 colors of Quince & Co. Finch. They're one of their fingering weight bases. The original pattern is written for 1 color, but this was the yarn that I had, and I had seen some other project pages where people had done 2 colors. So basically I did the lace sections in the light gray and did some striping. Alright, that is all I have for finished objects. So let's move on to works in progress. First up is my Bravura pullover by Beatrice Perrin-Dallin. Since we talked last time, I have finished 1 sleeve, and I am getting close to finishing the second. I was originally knitting the sleeves 2 at a time on 2 circular needles, but then I ran out of 1 ball of yarn. Like, one of them was smaller than the other, so I just switched to knitting them magic loop, 1 at a time. I have decided I'm going to go back in and add some length to this. I didn't gauge swatch. So, the length, it just hits me at a weird place. The pattern is written to be cropped, and I just can't see myself wearing a cropped pullover with multiple colors, basically. I have 1 cropped sweater that's solid colored, and I do wear that one. And actually it's the Acacia crop sweater. You may remember me talking about it. I was a test knitter for that project. And since I knit that sweater, I have actually found myself wearing more high-waisted things, or I've always had skirts that were high-waisted. I've just started actually tucking my shirt into it. For a long time I wasn't sure that I could pull off that look, and for a long time I was basically just worried that it was not a flattering look on my body shape. But I realized, oh, I like this. With the right skirt, it works. But I don't really see myself wearing a cropped colorwork pullover, because some of the skirts that I do have that are high-waisted are patterned. They wouldn't match this. So I'm going to go back in, undo my bind off, and knit it a little bit longer. Because this doesn't hit me at my natural waist. It's like halfway between my natural waist and my hips, which is just a weird, it means I can't wear it with jeans. So it just hits me at a funky spot. So I'm going to go back in and add length. But I love this sweater. I was able to knit it out of a lot of stash. Well, all of it is stash. I didn't buy any yarn to do this. I didn't think I had a lot of sport DK weight stash until I actually started looking. So I had a lot of blues, greens, grays that I could use. And I still have quite a bit left of some of the colors that don't get used as often. So I may have to put them together in a future project. Maybe a matching hat. That would be so cute. Anyway, I love this. So I'm almost done with the sleeve. So not a lot to report on that one. I have, per usual, a sock on the needles. I basically always have at least one pair of socks on the needles. They're just such a good, like, portable, travel, easy knitting project. These socks are knit out of this year's West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas colorway, which is called Robin, like the bird. So it's not like a traditional red and green Christmas yarn, but I love it. The pattern is the pattern that came with the yarn when I bought it. I bought the yarn from the Woolly Thistle, which is based out of New Hampshire. They sell a lot of yarns from a lot of European yarns that primarily British yarns that would be really expensive to buy from a shop in the UK, but Kareen has a fabulous selection, so you can order British yarns and other European yarns right here in the US, which is really nice. Anyway, these are the Christmas Robin socks by Winwick Mum. It came in like a little card, and you open it up and the pattern's on the inside. How cute is that? So, it's got a picture of a robin on the front. I did realize I'm using a needle size that's smaller. I think it calls for size 2.5 millimeter needles. I'm using 2.25 because I read the pattern too fast. So again, with making small socks. So these look really tiny, but as soon as I turned the heel, I tried them on, and they do stretch out quite a bit. It's a ribbed pattern with a cable down the front and a cable down the back, and then the cable in the front continues down the foot. Again, you only do the cabling like every 9 or 10 rounds or something like that. So it's pretty mindless, easy knitting, but still with like an interesting stitch pattern to keep me a little bit more motivated. Now, I had never done a heel turn like this before. The heel it's a heel flap and gusset, but it's a ribbed heel. Typically in the past when I've done a heel flap and gusset, it's been like a slip stitch pattern. And this is like a combination of a slip stitch and a 1x1 rib, which is really interesting. It results in the same basic look as a typical slip stitch heel, which is like on the Odeline socks. Like, it's slip stitches and knit stitches. But yeah, it was interesting. It makes for a nice stretchy heel, which is really cool. And I did cut the yarn and join it again at the spot where I didn't just continue the heel flap after I turned the heel. I cut the yarn and like unwound until I got back to this same color. So obviously the width of the stripes is a little bit different with the gusset decreases, but the striping pattern remains the same. I never thought of doing that, honestly, on a striped sock. It never really occurred to me to just cut the yarn and rejoin it at the right spot, but it makes a lot of sense. And I love using West Yorkshire spinners for socks. I have a couple pairs of socks that I've knit with their yarns, and they're really comfy. But they're sturdy. Like, I'm not afraid they're gonna pill or fall apart. It's a 75% wool, 25% nylon blend, and the wool contains 35% blue-faced Leicester. So it's nice to use something that has a different kind of wool in it, and they are very sturdy. And they have fun striping patterns. So it's a win-win all around. So, my next work in progress, I've also cast on recently. Every year, I say I'm not going to do Christmas knitting. And every year, in November, I think, well, maybe I'll just knit a few things. But I've just basically decided, for me, I don't want to do a lot of gift knitting, and I only want to use yarns and patterns that I would want to be using anyway. Because part of my issue with gift knitting in the past is if I'm using a yarn or knitting a pattern that's not something that I really enjoy, it makes it like a chore. But if I'm using a yarn that I like and is enjoyable to work with, or in a pattern that I was already interested in, but still I think the recipient will like, is perfect. Which obviously means I'm not going to be knitting gifts for everyone, because my style and what I want to work on is not the same as everybody else's. So that's kind of the point where I've come to with gift knitting. And at this point it's early enough. I haven't bought I bought a couple of things, but I haven't bought many Christmas gifts for people yet. So it's at the point where it's like, okay, if I don't have something knit by the end of the month, I'll buy that person something instead. So I do have 8 siblings, a variety of ages and sizes, three brothers, 5 sisters. So like, if I find a pattern I really like, I can figure out somebody to make it for. And I've also found that gift knitting is a good way to use up those single skeins that I have, like a fingering weight or any other weight yarn. Just that, you might have 1 or 2 skeins of that color. And I have a lot of shawls and scarves and hats and mittens already for me. So I don't necessarily need another scarf, but if I have, or another cowl, but if I have 1 or 2 skeins of yarn and I feel like making a cowl, it's a good opportunity to use those yarns and make something that I like to make, but I don't need to make space for it in my closet. So, all that to say, my next project, one more thing. I have found that I need to use yarns that can be washed and dried in a standard washer and dryer, no special settings. For gift knitting, I don't want to give somebody something made of 100% non-superwash wool and then it'll accidentally get thrown in the washer, which it will inevitably be. And then they'll feel bad that it shrunk, and they won't want to tell me because they feel bad, because they feel like it was their fault, whatever. So that can be tricky because most of the yarns that I buy now are typically non-superwash unless it's fingering weight yarn. But one yarn that I have found that I really like to use for gift knitting is Malabrigo yarns. Really soft, still really woolly, gorgeous colors, superwash. So this next project started out with, I bought 2 skeins of Malabrigo Rios yarn. I believe this one is the Archangel colorway. This one is, I don't know how to say it, Cielo Itera. And I hadn't originally planned for them to go together. I bought a couple skeins when they were on sale because I thought, okay, that'll be a great quick, if I need a quick hat or something for Christmas, or just a quick, like a baby shower gift or something. These would be good yarns for that. It's a worsted weight, 210 yards per skein. But then I wanted to knit one of my little sisters a cowl or a scarf. So I kind of was looking through my stash, what I had a couple of other yarns that I thought about putting together, but I wasn't totally happy with the combination. And I was trying to think of something that would match her new winter coat that she got. And her new winter coat is navy blue with pink and purple and white flowers. Enter navy blue yarn and pinky purpley yarn. So then the question was, what kind of cowl? Because the coat has a pattern on it, so I didn't want anything really patterned. And color work in these two, it's not a very high contrast, so I didn't really want to do color work. Also didn't want to do stripes, that would be too busy. So I settled on a brioche cowl. It's been a while since I had done brioche, and I'd kind of been wanting to do another brioche project. And so I chose the Worsted Brioche Bandana Cowl by Lavanya Patrichella. And I've been wanting to knit one of her designs for a while. She has a lot of brioche patterns. And she has basically a cowl pattern, like in every yarn weight, pretty much. A brioche cowl. So, I cast on with 10 fewer stitches than recommended, since this is for my 11-year-old sister. And I wanted it to be nice and warm so she can wear it when she's playing outside. So it's going to be like a bandana shape, so it'll come to a point in the front, but I obviously haven't gotten to that part yet. It's knitting up really fast, worsted weight, size 8 needles, so squishy. Brioche, I have found, is also really good for a gift knit because it is so nice and squishy and soft. Here in Maine, we need warm clothes to go outside in the winter. So it's just a really nice, it's nice and squishy, and similar to a ribbing, it's nice and stretchy, so there's a little bit of, like, it doesn't have to be exactly the perfect size. But it just allows, it's squishier than ribbing, and it allows you to play with colors in a way that is just harder to do with ribbing. So this is right now the right side, and the purple is on the wrong side. But it'll pretty much, I would think, be reversible because it's brioche. So yes, I just cast this on like 2 days ago in the evening. So I've made quite a bit of progress on that. I've also decided that unless I start way earlier or it's a pair of socks, fingering weight is a no-go for Christmas gifts. I say that. And I have a cowl I'm planning on making and a fingering weight yarn. So I break my own rules. It's fine. I do have like a remake project that I'm working on. The pattern, well, first I'll tell you a story. So, it's Maine. I wear mittens a lot. I like to drive, walk around, whatever. So, I was on campus at college last fall, and the coat that I have, for whatever reason, I typically have 2 pairs of mittens in my pockets. Which means that inevitably things fall out, like on a regular basis. So I was walking around campus one day, got to my car, realized I only had 1 mitten. But it was dark, and it was nighttime. I was not about to go back and try to find it. So I ended up with one sad, lonely treehouse mitten by Melody Hoffman. Just one. But I had enough yarn to make a second one. And the yarn is Peace Fleece DK, I think. Yes. Peace Fleece DK, and I still had like half of a skein left. But I decided, why not just remake the whole pair? At first I just thought, okay, I'll just knit the left-handed mitten. But the mittens didn't really fit me the best. Number 1 was my fault because I did not do enough repeats of the stitch pattern. I thought I was supposed to do 4 total when really it meant 4 after this. The first one is different. It really meant do the first setup 1 and then 4. So that was my bad. So it's not long enough. Like, basically my wrist is here, which still leaves about 1 inch of ribbing that's on my hand. And the thumb is too short, and the hand is too short because I didn't do all the repeats of the stitch pattern. And I was like, it's knitting. I'm making my own mittens. I can make them to actually fit my hands. And my other issue with this was that the thumb gusset is so close to the stitch pattern that it pulls the stitch pattern over. And at first I thought maybe that was also my bad, but that is how the pattern is written. There's only like a couple of stitches between here, which may fit some people's hands, but doesn't work for me. So you can see, I'm trying to like angle it so it's not shadowed, sorry. So basically, like, the middle of my hand is here, and that's almost to the edge of the stitch pattern instead of the middle. So I figured, while I'm remaking this, I might as well just make it to fit my hand. But I kept this one for reference. I think I'm going to rip this one out It's like a wool mohair blend, I think. So it did kind of, like, it might be a bit sticky, basically. Not like, ew, gross, that's, like, floor is sticky, but you know what I mean. Like, the wool grabs onto itself. So I'm hoping that I can rip these out. So it took me, like, since January to finally finish off my first of my remade mittens. And it's going to be a little bit bumpy here because of my watch. But I knit the cuff longer. I added like 3/4 of an inch to the ribbing, so it'll go nice and long underneath my coat and sleeves. And the ribbing actually falls at my wrist, so on my hand is the actual mitten, not the ribbing. And I put more stitches between the stitch pattern and the thumb gusset. And I knit the thumb longer, and I did the full amount of repeats of the stitch pattern. So now the hand fits. This stitch marker, just so it's an easy way for me to remember how many rounds I ended up doing for the thumb. So to compare, alright, let's see. So I'll put my fingertips at the same place. It looks like I have like two different hands, basically. So you can see this one, the new one, is a lot longer, and I no longer feel, like, because my actual thumb, so here's the thumb, like my thumb, where my thumb splits from my hand is like way down here. So I have like an inch, which is just a weird feeling inside a mitten. Like, so there's an inch between where my thumb actually separates from my hand and where the thumb gusset separates from the hand of the mitten. So yeah, I finally finished the thumb on this, and now I need to frog this one and knit the second one. And I would probably still have enough yarn to make a whole second mitten, but like I don't need this floating around because I couldn't get rid of it, because what if I want the yarn? So I need to frog this one so I can make a second one that actually matches and fits my hand the right way. So yeah, I'm excited. So you can see here the difference between the two. So I'm excited to have these mittens back in circulation. Maybe by next fall I'll get around to it. We'll see. I think that is all I have for works in progress. So let's move on to the next project that I want to cast on. Like I said, I had just said, oh, I don't like to use fingering weight for Christmas gifts. Well, I want to knit another sister a cowl for Christmas. Not for Christmas, for her birthday, which is in mid-December. And I decided on the Star Shower. Let me make sure I get the designer's name right. The Star Shower by Hilary Smith Callis. Now this is one that I had knit for myself. And again, a unique cowl construction in that this is the back of the neck. Hold on, let me hold it so you can actually see it. So this is the back of the neck, and this is the front. So you cast on here, you knit flat with increases, then you join in the round and finish the rest. It's a really nice one skein project, and it fits really well. Like it's a really nice fitting cowl, and you get kind of the drapey look, but you still have the cowl up by your neck. Because I'm not somebody who likes the longer one loop cowls. Like if I wore, like I would never wear this one loop. I don't know, I just don't like how it looks on me. It doesn't seem practical. But sometimes you don't want it doubled up if you're going to be wearing it inside all day or something. So this is a really good compromise. It's not going to match my shirt at all, but I'll try not to show you. So basically, it's really nice and just a small piece of fabric in the neck. But then in the front you still get a full cowl look. So I found this, I find myself wearing it a lot, like in the spring or in the early fall before it gets too cold. I wear it a lot. So I decided to knit one for my sister, who is in her last year of college. She's doing she's being a teacher's assistant, doing an internship, as a teacher's assistant this year. So she needs to dress up for work more than she used to before. So I thought this would be a nice thing for her to wear while she's at work. So now I just have to decide what yarn I want to use. Oh, and if you're interested in this pattern, the designer has several versions in different weights of yarn. So if you do have one skein in a different weight, like in worsted or bulky or whatever, there are versions that are the same basic shape. Some of them have a slightly different stitch pattern, but it's the same general cowl. So really good for gift knitting. And it knits really fast. Because the first part is smaller and it's knit flat, like this knit flat section, but there's not a lot of stitches, so you don't have this many stitches the whole time. It's only at the end. So it does, like, I knit this one in like a week, I think, when I made it. So it does knit really quickly. So now I need to decide what yarn to use. I had picked up these skeins of yarn on sale at Knitwit in Portland, Maine. It is the Fiber Company Road to China Light. It's actually technically sport weight. But it's in alpaca, silk, camel, cashmere blend, and it is so soft. So I had picked this up and was trying to find a project for it. And I thought, okay, well, I can make a star shower. Like, that would be a good pattern for this, because they are 50-gram skeins. So I've got 100 grams overall, so this could make a really nice cowl, and I was going to make one for myself with this yarn. Or just, I have kind of a bucket where I put like socks and cowls and hats or something, things like that I've made but haven't worn yet, like in case I end up wanting to give it to somebody. So this is an option. My other thought, once I decided I was going to make one for my sister, was this skein of yarn that I received in the Get Your Yarn Wishes Granted event that happens on Instagram every year. I've seen a few people start to post about it this year. Where basically you can post using the hashtag, and after you grant somebody's wish, basically if they want a certain, like if they're asking for a yarn or a needle or notions or bags or whatever, you can grant somebody's wish, send it to them, and then it's kind of like once you've granted a wish, then you can post your own. So I granted a bunch last year, and one of the things that I wished for was some literary related items. So I received this along with a pattern. There was a designer, I don't think she designs anymore, who would basically do literary inspired patterns, and it was part of a club where you could get the yarn and the pattern and some notions and stuff like once a month, which is a fabulous idea. And if anybody is still doing that, let me know, because I want in. But anyway, this was a Madeline Tosh Merino Light, which is 100% superwash wool, and this is the Rosings Park colorway, as in Rosings Park from Pride and Prejudice. It is, it's a single ply, so again, I mean, obviously not as soft as like alpaca, cashmere, silk, and camel, but still nice and soft, and would make a really nice cowl. So now I have to decide if I want to do a red cowl or a green, like kind of like a green navy blue cowl for my sister. She loves blue and green, but that also means she already has a lot of blue and green things. So we'll see. Because I don't know how often she would wear a red one. I don't know. But this is more green than blue, so theoretically she could still wear this with a blue shirt. So we'll see. So that is what I will most likely cast on next after I'm done with the brioche cowl I'm working on. And these colors do look rather Christmassy altogether. Not on purpose. I do also want to make like colorwork Christmas socks. I have, when I bought the West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas yarn, I also bought a skein of red yarn to potentially use for heels, toes, and cuffs. Decided not to by accident because I just cast on with the Robin colorway and was halfway through the leg before I thought, oh yeah, I bought the red one for heels, toes, and cuffs. But it means I have this one. I apologize if you can hear the dog in the background. He's downstairs. Somebody must have pulled in the driveway or something. Hold on. I can't find it right now. But I also have a skein of green yarn that I used for in Christmas socks last year with last year's West Yorkshire Spinners Christmas colorway. So I kind of want to make myself some like colorwork Christmas socks. And I think I still have time. So we'll see. Just want to make all the things, all the things. So I think that is it for what I've been working on and what I want to be working on. I do have another thing that I did really quickly the other night. I don't know if this counts as something I made or not. I don't know. But I had a bunch of pins on my desk that I had purchased over the past few months. But I don't really have a great project bag for pins. I have one bag that's a canvas bag that I'd put some on. But it's not a very big bag, so I was finding the yarn was kind of getting wrapped around the back of the pins. And it didn't have a lot of extra space for more pins. But I had seen some people had done a similar thing like this where they had an embroidery hoop fabric on the inside and hung their pins up like this. So that's what I did. I just happen to have this massive embroidery hoop. It's like bigger than my face. And this cross-stitch fabric, and I didn't cut it at all in case I end up deciding to use it for something. I gathered in, I just did really big stitches and gathered it. And obviously it doesn't go all the way around, it was a rectangle. I apologize if you can hear the dog. You must see a dog somewhere. Or sometimes we have foxes who live around and he goes bananas when he sees the foxes. That's probably what's happening. But anyway, so I have a ton of pins on here. Probably like half of them are from the Clever Clove because I adore all of her pins. Some of them I received or purchased when I went to Rhinebeck last year. And there's a few others thrown in there. Oh, one of my favorites, I'll have to do a close-up after so you can see, is this is a Nevertheless She Knitted pin. And of course, I cannot remember the name of the shop. I'll put it on the screen. But I love it. Love it. So yeah, that is... So now it's hanging on the wall above my desk. The nice thing about embroidery hoops, they have the little thing on top. Fits over a thumbtack, like, perfectly. So I'm pumped about this. So now I can have all my pins on display, and when I buy more, I can just throw them on here. Something else knitterly related that I wanted to show you was a print that I bought. It says down here in the bottom, it says there's a woman stitching and it says you can sit with us. And this is from A. Jackson Illustrations. That's her name is Ashley, but A. Jackson Illustrations is her name on Instagram. Her feed is beautiful. Her art is so gorgeous, and it's like knitterly related, which makes it even better. But she had recently just had this like as an Instagram post, but so many people loved it. So she offered it as a print. And last I knew that she had some in stock, I'm not totally sure. She also has a really cute one where it's like a jar and it has little skeins of yarn in it. It says like yarn RX or something basically, and like take as needed. So like yarn medicine, which is fun. But I loved the idea behind this, and it's beautiful. Because I don't know how well you can see, but the different hands are obviously they are different skin tones. So this just, like I was talking about earlier, just representing like you can sit with us. It kind of inspires me to be, like I was saying earlier, to try to be more inclusive in craft events and be welcoming to whoever wants to come. And this is just such a great reminder. I need to find like a frame or something to put this in so I can hang it up. I don't want to just like tape it up on the wall, which, as you can see, is a habit of mine. I have stuff like literally all over my walls. These are quotes my little sisters made for me for my birthday a couple years ago. They are quotes from Pride and Prejudice. I think they've got Pride and Prejudice and Emma. They've seen the movies and they know that I love them, so they put some quotes for me and they're up on my wall. But like, this is a really nice print. I don't want to just tape it up on the wall, so I need to find a square frame or something to put this in because I love this. Hang it right next to all of my pins. Oh, I lied. I have another knitting related item. Oh my goodness, I'm so excited about this. This is Knitting, the card game. Earlier in the year, this was a Kickstarter campaign. It was funded like in a crazy amount of time. So basically, it's a knitting game, and it is delightful. I 100% played by myself a couple of times. Partly so I could kind of get used to how it worked and the ideas to make it easier to explain to other people. And then I convinced my 3 little sisters to play with me, who are 13, 11, and almost 9. And they actually really enjoyed it. I think all of them know how to knit, but like it's not something that they really do all that often. But they still had a lot of fun with it. The basic concept is everybody starts off with some yarn and some patterns. And the pattern cards, and they're all like, all of the patterns and all of the yarns are real patterns and yarns that exist in the world. So, there's different pattern cards, and basically, they show a picture of the pattern, and then like the name of the actual pattern and the name of the designer. And then on the side, it shows you how many skeins of different colors are required. So like this is the Told River Cowl by Andrea Rangel, and you need 2 skeins of blue yarn and 2 skeins of yellow yarn. This one is Pretty Things by Lavanya Patricella, and you need 4 skeins of purple yarn and 3 skeins of green yarn. So throughout the game, you collect yarn, and then you can like you cast on, and every time it's your turn, you advance 1 week on your project, because it also tells you like how many weeks, aka turns, it takes to finish your it. So there's a board in the middle which is the yarn store that has all the yarn cards, again like actual yarns, and they all have like the color in the corner. Some of them are like a really variegated one is a wild yarn card, so you can use it as a substitute for any other color, and some patterns also call for this. So it's just like a really fun matching colors and patterns and trying to plan out your projects, because then you get points for every finished object you have, and the first person to get a certain number of points from their finished object wins. So it's just like really fun, and I'm glad that I have a few more knitting friends now that I went to Taproot Craft Night, and maybe we'll play this. We'll see. But I am so excited about that game. I don't know if it's like available for purchase, because I backed the Kickstarter. So yeah, I'll dig into that a little bit more later to see if it's on the there is a website where it looks like you can pre-order it, but I'm not sure. But anyway, I'm really pumped about that game. I thought I'd love to read, but I don't always talk about it a whole lot, but I like hearing what other people are reading. And one of the books is knitting related, so, you know. So I thought I'd talk about two books that I have. One book that I finished this week and another book that I started. The book that I finished is called We Were the Lucky Ones by Georgia Hunter. This is historical fiction set in World War II, but it's based on the story of the author's grandfather and his brothers and sisters and his parents. And they were Jews living in Poland, and obviously during World War II, a lot of millions and millions of Jews died during World War II, including in Poland. So this is the story of her grandfather and his brothers and sisters. It's historical fiction. I heard an interview with her, and she said that she wanted to do historical fiction because she started writing it as nonfiction, but because obviously there's not a lot of records from that time, and a lot of it was from stories that had been passed down, she didn't start writing this until after her grandfather had died. She didn't even find out about most of this story until after her grandfather and his brothers and sisters had died. So she couldn't necessarily write about how they were feeling or create dialogue in a nonfiction format. So she chose to write this as historical fiction, but based on fact. I love this book. It was so good. I know that there are a lot of World War II books out there, and some people are tired of World War II books. But I think that there's so many because it was a war that affected so many people. So there are books that take place in different countries and about the different groups that were affected during World War II. And so, yeah, I really enjoyed reading about the, fiction, but based on historical fact, of what happened to this one particular family. And it's beautifully written. It does move around perspectives in the different chapters. At first, I had started it, and then I put it down, and then I picked it back up again a couple months later. So at first, I think that meant that I had a little bit more trouble remembering, okay, who's married to whom, some of the connections of who people were. But I remembered it pretty quickly. It doesn't take that long to catch on, and she includes, a family tree of the family in the beginning. Because it's two parents and their 5 children, and then some of them are married at the beginning, get married, whatever. So it's a lot of people to keep track of. But the author does a really good job of keeping you interested in all the characters. Sometimes a book with too many perspectives means that you lose interest in some of the characters. You just want to get back to character A's storyline. You don't really care about character D. But Georgia Hunter did a really good job of balancing the different perspectives because they were all over. They were scattered across the world. And their stories didn't overlap much as the war went on. But the author does a really good job of keeping a good balance and keeping you interested and invested in wanting to know what happens to all of the different characters. Highly recommend this book. The other book, so I finished this one. The book that I started reading is Vanishing Fleece by Clara Parks. This is her newest book. It just came out this year. And I have a signed copy because Clara Parks is from Maine, and she did a mini book tour when this book came out, and her first stop was a bookstore in Portland. So I went after work. I work in Portland now, so it's easier to make it to events that happen in Portland. So I went after work, bought a copy of the book, and she signed the books afterwards. It was fun to get to see her in person, hear her read a chapter, or part of a chapter from the book. Basically, this book is about the years she spent transforming a 676-pound bale of wool into commercial yarn and the people and vanishing industry she discovered along the way. So, she's basically spent a year, she got a bale of wool and spent a year turning that into yarn. So if you've read any of her other books, it's she's a very funny writer. So it's written like her other books, but it is a fascinating look, from what I've read so far, into the wool industry and how yarn is actually created and the different places where it has to go and be shipped to and all of that kind of stuff. So right now I'm like not quite halfway through, and right now her bale of wool, she has, it's now getting parceled off, and it has been sent to the first mill. She basically was taking it and dividing it up and trying to send it to a few different mills in the United States. So it just arrived at its first mill. So I'm excited to read this. I found that for nonfiction books, I read nonfiction, but I also sometimes find that I don't always like every nonfiction book, obviously. But I like nonfiction that's like this, where there's still a story through it. Whether it's a biography or a memoir or something like this, I like to have a plot, not just a bunch of facts. So this is a really fun read, even if you're not somebody, or if you know somebody who's not interested in knitting, but they are interested in sustainability and like in slow fashion and different things like that. This would be, I think this would still be interesting to other people. Like right now, I'm not quite halfway through, and it's not talking about knitting or picking out yarn or anything like that. Like, it's not about knitting, it's about the wool industry and her experiences navigating it. So this is a really fun book. If you haven't read any of her other books, I would also recommend them. I have her Knitter's Book of Yarn and Knitter's Book of Wool, which are really good resources if you want to find out about certain kinds of wool, different breeds, or different types of yarn and what different words and terms mean. But she does have other nonfiction books more similar to this one. So yeah, Claire Parks is great. And I love this book. So, that is all that I wanted to talk about, I think. I'm looking around, making sure I'm not missing anything. Yeah, I think that's all I wanted to talk about. I'm excited that it is here in the Northern Hemisphere. It is winter, almost. And it is woolly weather. And I love wearing my sweaters and shawls and all the knitty things. So, until I see you next time, I hope that you have a wonderful day, that you are able to enjoy some knitting and some wool wherever you are. Until I see you next time, have fun creating all of it.